Everything we were taught was a lie. History and death keep repeating themselves, and things never change, since at all times, all authorities in all spheres of life have always deceived you. The first authorities in your life are your parents, those who say they love you. As your official educators, they have given their rights and money to external authorities, whose purpose is to transform you into a moronic slave for life. How interesting. Omicron equals moronic. Omicron, a video game about demons pretending to be human that lure humans into Omicron from other dimensions. If a character dies, the real human playing the game loses their soul. Omicron hysteria is a virus of the mind, psychological terrorism targeting humanity. Are your parents dishonest? No, merely ignorant and unconscious. Ignorant of the real purpose of the system and unconscious of their true internal power. They simply reproduce what they have learned without questioning the authorities in place. Will you follow your parents' footsteps? You planned on doing better than your parents, but you remained in the same world of illusion. Whatever you do, no matter what adventure you choose, you always carry your programming. You wear it like a thick veil of illusion that covers up the truth and keeps you separated from who you are. I received this link to the movie Great Pyramid K 2019, director Fehmi Krasniqi, from my friend Thierry from France. I watched this documentary in French before the Corona insanity started. Now I watched it again in English, and this time with Lee. We were both deeply moved. My opinion is that this documentary is the most awesome documentary ever done, and it must be shared far and wide. This is a 3-hour, 40-minute documentary. Here is my condensed version and my final thoughts. For Egyptologists, it was the Egyptians who built the pyramid. Period. In the absence of a rational and coherent explanation, today we have all kinds of theories ranging from perplexing to surreal. The documentary suggests either extraterrestrials built the pyramids or a lost civilization, the Atlanteans, or both together, hand in hand. Concerning the construction of the pyramids, they do not advance any scientific explanation. We're still waiting to see the aliens on the evening news of the major channels filmed in high definition. At present, there is no evidence of the ultra-developed civilization or aliens before the Egyptians. If we divide the width of the pyramid by half the height, we get pi, 3/14. The golden ratio and pi are also found in the king's chamber. Those two figures and many others are universal constants. Officially, pi was discovered by Archimedes around 287 BC. When we look for the truth, sometimes we take a big detour, and in the end we realize that it was right next door. We just had to look down, right under our feet, on the ground. We are at ground level. The mold for the first cornerstone is in place, arranged in Indian file, in African file. They pour the white concrete and about 30 minutes later, the mold is filled. Today, we call this process formwork construction. However, first let us go back a few years. The Egyptians started from the principle of 1 to 10 by counting their fingers and then their toes, and thereby appropriated the number system of 10 by 10 by 10. The numbering system by 10 is for humans the first gateway to scientific understanding of the environment. Through observation, they understood a fundamental function of nature. Everything is divided or assembled in small equal units. This observation will serve them throughout their discoveries. The diameter of the drop of water on a waterproof surface like granite or alabaster is constant. It measures 1 centimeter. They named this small unit the royal finger. 10 drops of water or 10 royal fingers equals 1 royal hand. 100 drops of water, so 100 royal fingers or 10 royal hands equals 1 royal leg. Centuries later, these discoveries were taken out of secret coffers and renamed. 100 royal fingers equals 100 centimeters. 10 royal hands equals 10 decimeters. And the royal leg, the meter. They were presented as recent discoveries, and the French appropriated them, made in France. Adoption of the meter by France on April 7, 1795, as official length measurement. The diameter of the drop of fresh water measures what is now called 1 centimeter. Yes, the universal unit, the meter, was not invented in 1780, but it was discovered by the Egyptians millennia ago. The architecture of the entire universe is constructed with this unit. Now that the Egyptian had discovered the meter, they could trace the plots without a problem. They reasoned thus: since the gods use these sacred figures everywhere in nature, in order to remain connected to nature ourselves, we must integrate them into our buildings to do as the gods do. The Egyptians will integrate the universal constants everywhere: pi, the golden ratio, phi, the royal cubit. The Egyptians knew the Fibonacci sequence in the golden number thousands of years before Fibonacci, in 1180 AD. They called it the addition sequence. Phi ratio 1.618 is the famous golden number that Leonardo da Vinci called the divine proportion. The Temple of Kafre, the Temple of Edfu, Akhenaten's palaces are built with the golden rectangle. The Pyramid of Kafre is that of the sacred triangle 3, 4, 5, in symmetry, the Pythagorean triangle. The Great Pyramid became sacred since it was built with the cubit 52.36, the royal constant, the meter, and pi. 4 universal constants were linked together in this building. The pyramid is exceptionally precise to within 1 centimeter, which shows the pi value very precisely. The Great Pyramid is the largest man-made expression of pi and the golden ratio visible on Earth. By working 3 months a year, 8 hours a day, and with buckets of 15 kilograms, the pyramid was completed between 10 and 13 years in good humor, joy, and pleasure. Official theory says that the obelisk was carved out of the rock with dolerite balls. Absolute nonsense. Granite cannot be carved with any instrument. The truth is that the Egyptians made a magnifying lens out of sodium silicate and potassium silicate. They poured the liquid into a lens-shaped mold. 2 to 3 days later, they unmolded the transparent lens. A lens that focuses light at one point, a magnifying glass. Everyone can make their own solar lens with the recipe. Have fun! The larger the lens, the higher the temperature. With a 5-meter diameter lens, the temperature reaches 1,800 degrees to 2,000 degrees Celsius. The Egyptians have just discovered solar energy. Everything is melted, nothing can resist. Granite literally melts at once, like lava. The Egyptians poured this lava into clay molds. And here is the famous statue of the 3rd dynasty, Uni, in Aswan granite. The Egyptians understood the essence of all things, that God, or the architect of the universe, built nature and all of its components using a matrix called mathematics. They then applied it themselves in turn like gods. This way of building, based on universal constants, was spread everywhere on Earth over the millennia. Cathedrals, churches, and various buildings were carried out with the cubit, the meter, pi, and phi, which was mystically called sacred geometry. 20 years of hard work for their king is coming to an end. The Kemet, black land. No, it's not the black color of the Nile silt, which is mentioned as some archaeologists claim, but the color of the skin of the people who live there. The only race capable of withstanding days and months of 45 degrees Celsius, 113 degrees Fahrenheit, is the Negro race with black skin. The Egyptians of the pyramids for millennia were Negroes, neither olive-skinned nor mulatto, but charcoal black. The Egyptians memorialized and imprinted their negritude in granite and quartz for eternity. The Egyptians knew navigation systems and infallibly mastered orientation. Thousands of Egyptians traveled to America, now Guatemala, for the first time between 2,000 and 3,000 years BC. The Egyptians who arrived here on the other side of the world built a pyramid with the meter and pi. The Pyramid of the Sun, Mexico, Americas, compared with Pyramid of Khufu, Giza, Egypt. 12,000 kilometers separate Egypt from Mexico. There is no shortage of Negroid faces. The Olmec colossal heads were discovered in 1946. The African Olmecs were discovered in Central America, at the very place where the pyramids were found. The Afro-Egyptians, or as we now call them, the Amero-Egypto-Africans, migrated little by little towards the South Pacific coast. They settled in remote high elevations, maybe to have peace. Wherever they went with their powerful solar lenses, these men were taken for gods. The Machu Picchu buildings fascinate everyone. The whole site was built in poured andesite and granite, melted into lava thanks to the solar lens. We had to measure to see if we could find the Egyptian royal cubit. Not one stone from the magnificent walls of the site of Ollantaytambo, Pisac, Cusco, or Sacsayhuaman were cut. These sites were built by Afro-Egyptians with the solar lens. After their departure, the Incas continued to maintain them, but with a rudimentary technique. From Machu Picchu, their migration continued towards the Titicaca region. The same technique was used in Tiwanaku. When you travel to Peru and Bolivia and ask tour guides, they tell you that these perfect cuts were made with simple stone tools in an extremely hard material like quartz. In addition, we have the small stone which contains 20 precisely drilled holes, 30 centimeters deep. There is no instrument capable of doing this. All these perfect structures are made of molten andesite, thanks to the solar lenses. The Pumapunku stones measure precisely 1 meter and 0 millimeters. This is undeniable proof that the Egyptians came here. No astronauts or extraterrestrials have come here, but the Egyptians with their meter and their solar lenses. No ultra-sophisticated machine cut these stones. No extraterrestrials. They are melted stones like the granite of Aswan and the quartz in Egypt. The Egyptians traveled to Nazca, Peru. You arrive on a plain where you will see gigantic animals drawn on the ground, the largest drawings on earth. This is where one finds the path to cross the large body of water. Down there, you follow the two parallel lines. At the time, sea level was about 100 to 150 meters lower than today. Hundreds of islands were therefore exposed. They made the decision to leave the continent to go to these islands. From the Nazca coast, they crossed 80 to 100 kilometers and reached the first island. Then they traveled from island to island to arrive at Easter Island. These men were not only from South America, but were of Afro-Egyptian origin. These statues are identical in design, yet thousands of kilometers separate them. Moais cut and moved with ropes. It is as fanciful as this image. They built no fewer than 887 moais on Easter Island, always using the same technique. I think that the salt that was melted to create these volcanic basalt stones was melted thanks to the solar lenses. The unfinished moai in molten andesite and the unfinished Aswan obelisk in molten granite bear the fingerprint of the same artist. Beyond the molten stone walls, which resemble those of Machu Picchu in Peru and the Kafre temple in Egypt, there is further evidence that the Egyptians were on Easter Island. The Ahu Tongariki base upon which the 15 moais are placed is precisely 100 meters. Over the years, the Egyptians circumnavigated the world several times. Their boats ran aground in Gosford, Australia. The 500 hieroglyphs found there are referenced. There is no error. The grammar is perfect. The exploration of the planet also took place on the other side. For the Kailasa temple and the Ellora caves in India, the rocks were cut out with solar lenses. The temple is made in clay mold and filled with the same basalt melted into lava. Here is one of the largest antique statues in the world in white granite, 1,000 tons. There is no white granite in or around the hill. The same technique is deployed here as in Egypt for the statues. The extraordinary Sigiriya. There is no original staircase from the ground to access it. How did the workers get there? In Sigiriya, the rock was cut on the side to give it the shape we see today. At the top of the rock, there was a step pyramid built with sandstone bricks. A granite swimming pool was built, with a throne to contemplate the unique landscape. The gardens were built with the meter, the sacred triangle, and the golden rectangle. The Temple of Angkor Wat, Cambodia. The temples of Angkor Wat, Cambodia, are built with the meter and aligned with the equinox. In America, they built temples above the pyramids. It was the opposite in India. The prowess of the Afro-Egyptians seems incredible. It seems unbelievable that they could create all this around the world and that they have traveled as well. One recognizes without hesitation their indisputable authorship, their clear, certain signature in all their achievements, the meter. The meter, but also the sophisticated techniques for melting granite, making concrete, use of sacred geometry, and the constants pi, phi, and the royal cubit. The Egyptians didn't disappear. Faced with the deterioration of the climatic conditions in Egypt, they migrated massively with their knowledge to India, where hundreds of temples were born. It would seem that the works were carried out in collaboration with the local population. The assumption is that at this point, an apocalypse occurred around 2100 BC. Civilizations recovered slowly from this cataclysm. The Greeks extracted from the Egyptians some formulas on concrete manufacturing. The Athena Temple, the Parthenon, and Erechthon were made of limestone concrete. The marble was also cast and not cut. The Romans took their turn in seizing this knowledge, built their cities and temples. However, the Egyptians' technique to melt granite remained secret to the general public. Like the rest of the empire, Egypt was plundered. After the conquest of Egypt, many Egyptian obelisks were taken to Europe, mainly in Rome. Later, ignoring the significance of the stories carved on the obelisks, they added their crosses. The order of the Knights Templar, called the Guardians of the Temple, was actually an order of concrete temple builders. They gave themselves over to the church after being massacred in 1312. They were called the Freemasons in England, and in France, the Francs-Maçons. Over the centuries, they came together to form a single international body, the Freemasons. They invented the legend of carving stone for the average person, common mortals. The church propagated the legend of the carved stone, made from the suffering and sweat of the faithful. The church, therefore the Vatican, placed orders to make basilicas and cathedrals, and the Freemasons built them out of concrete. When we visit these monuments, we are both amazed but also doubtful, with a feeling that something is wrong. Egyptian concrete was used not only for churches, but for all infrastructure. From 1700 to 1900, hundreds of cathedrals were built, thousands of bridges, public and private buildings in all European cities. The use of sacred geometry in construction from Egyptian knowledge was preserved and transmitted in secret. Masons applied sacred architecture and Egyptian thought by integrating universal constants in all buildings. The architects of the cathedrals deployed the meter, pi, the golden ratio, and the royal cubit. To conclude, the Freemasons were never stone masons, but a body of builders, architects, chemists, and mathematicians who used concrete. Even today, Negro Egypt continues to be discreetly honored by the Freemasons in thanks for the immense gift received from them. Why did the Egyptian civilization disappear? They didn't disappear, but some migrated to India for a milder climate. Those who stayed behind kept their knowledge secret, but their pacifism was fatal. They had not developed a powerful army. Over the centuries, the knowledge of Imhotep and the Egyptians escaped through the entire world. Their knowledge was not lost, it was shared, sometimes taken by force, by the Persians, the Greeks, the Philistines, the Romans, the whole world. It was passed on from generation to generation. For almost 3,000 years, Imhotep was worshipped as a god. Pilgrims came every year from all over the world until the year 350, the date when Constantine decided to convert to Christianity. From that time on, the temples dedicated to the prophet Imhotep were destroyed and the priests slaughtered. Ancient pagan and Egyptian beliefs were all erased. Imhotep was replaced by Jesus Christ and was forgotten. Afro-Egyptians were seen as gods by the people they encountered. They were the first scientists of humanity, the fathers of chemistry, physics, mathematics, geometry. The Egyptians founded modern civilization. The Nile was doubly sacred. It offered food, but not only. The Nile gave them the most precious thing in the world, the time. 4 months per year to reflect and observe. Time for science. There is no evidence to prove the existence of the aliens. The fact of not having scientific evidence is already proof. For thousands of years, we have been alone on Earth, and we will remain so for a long time. However, all the humans that are now selling their souls to Satan by willingly accepting the venom operating system will not stay here on Earth. Only the courageous critical mass of individuals will transform into the new divine species. The truth is that this mysterious and greatly developed civilization was Egypt. If there is an obscure truth, it is that this Egypt was Negro. They discovered solar energy. Without solar energy, there would have been no Great Pyramid. Humanity was built with all forms of concrete and not with cut stone. Negro Egypt allowed us to build temples, streets, houses, sports stadiums, enough to build humanity. Imhotep was the greatest scientist of humanity, and the Negroes of Africa gave their knowledge, chemistry, architecture, geometry, mathematics to all other peoples. And what in turn did they receive as a reward? Centuries of slavery, suffering, misery, massacres, and it never ends. The looting and insult to Africa continue today. It is time for humanity to mature. I am deeply touched by this documentary, and I feel that I can contribute to human evolution by offering this shortened version, and most importantly, by adding the truth which comes beyond this truth. Through Personocratia's teachings, I know that I am creatrix, and the true me, my soul, creates every single detail which then manifests in front of me in this temporary illusion for my perfect life journey. I am eternally grateful to myself, my soul, for creating a life where I traveled all over the world up until the time when my soul decided that it is time for me to stop and go to jail for reflection time. For 10 years with Lee, we traveled literally everywhere and experienced all these Egyptian wonders with only two exceptions: Easter Island and Ethiopia. When I packed my things for shipping them to Colombia, I packed all the physical pictures which I have organized in albums. My ego is very happy with these memories. At this time, humanity is ready for its next evolutionary leap. This is why humanity is living the present apocalypse. All the obedient sheep who sell their souls to Satan will not take part in this transformation into the next divine being. What will happen to them? I do not know, but they will not stay on earth. The only thing that I know with absolute certitude is that I will participate in this event. There will be a time when things flip to a new reality, like there has been a time when the mental being was able to manifest on earth. It will happen when a sufficient number of consciousness will feel very strongly that it cannot be otherwise. The Mother, Carnet de Laboratoire, 1950 to 1973. A critical mass is needed in order for species to transform itself completely. You have probably heard the story of the 100th monkey. Here it is. Guy talks about 100,000 Personocratias, mares, at different stages of transformation, as being the critical mass necessary to flip the scale in the new directions so that paradise on earth finally manifests itself. This famous paradise will first appear inside each of us and will be later expressed on the outside. One thing is stronger than all the armies in the world. It is an idea whose time has come. Victor Hugo. What will 100,000 persons constantly bathing in the energy of the sovereign mare do? They will stop living in fear and will follow their soul's directions at all times. Their body will become one with their idessic soul, and both will vibrate at the same frequency, that of true love, harmony, and joy. As long as their numbers are sufficient, this energy will spread instantaneously everywhere in the universe, since only love is contagious. Infinite love. It is up to us not to comply, yet have compassion towards others, no matter where they are at on their evolutionary path of consciousness. Every day, I must reinforce my resolve to move forward on my evolutionary path towards the new species. Let us rejoice, because everything that unfolds in the world of lies is only an illusion, and this world of lies is disintegrating before us exponentially. From hell on earth to paradise on earth, we are building what many said was impossible. Consider joining us in our consciousness community on the edge of the town of Popayan in southern Colombia. This is an invitation for a long-term stay at Cascada Café Retiro in Colombia. There is absolutely nowhere to hide. Having said that, in Popayan there is good food growth throughout the year, and the temperate mountain climate makes life very comfortable here. Will you join us in this paradise on earth? I consult by phone and offer tools so that you can find your individual solution by making contact with your soul. Please share my videos so that this information can reach the people who need it. Infinite love.